Hey everybody, welcome to the Jabcast. As you can see, Jared, Alec, and Ben here, just like we were last weekend. We've got a great show ahead of us. I understand that we have a special guest today, Alec. I'll give you a chance to introduce him.
Yeah, but before we hop into that, I just wanted to mention to all of our listeners that they now have the ability to head over to Anchor and they can give donations to help us out and build our podcast, build the quality of our podcast, maybe get Ben a microphone so it doesn't sound like he's underwater. And then from there, we can keep growing and making our podcast better for all of our listeners. But today we have our first guest in podcast format, Mike Gawbill, the equipment manager from the Metropolitan Riveters, which is an NWHL team, which is professional women's hockey. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, good evening, guys. Thanks for having me on board. And I feel a little bit of pressure being your first guest here, but nah, just kidding. I think this is going to be a fun experience, and I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit of the experience I've had with the Ribs.
Yeah. Right. So, like, what's it like being an equipment manager for the Riveters?
You know, that's a loaded question, but to answer it simply, it's an absolute thrill. And I think a lot of people, and in full disclosure, Alec has worked with me before. He was our super volunteer this past season, helping out with stuff outside the locker room at our home games. And when people see me through that perspective and that tunnel, I look stressed, I look like frantic, but that's just game day. You know, you're in the zone, and that's like the big show. As an equipment manager, I feel just as energized going into a game as I did when I was playing big hockey games in my competitive playing days. You know, like it's game day for me. I can't sleep the night before. I'm fired up because I just think and overthink what can I do to set this team up for success. You know, and it's like a real honor to work with such compassionate, altruistic players that are skilled too. You know, I've met professional athletes in another number of different levels and leagues and in different sports, but getting to know these players personally and seeing how amazing they are towards each other, towards their fans, how they want to grow the game, just compels me to work so much harder. And I find that like my drive is enhanced by their just personalities and their perseverance and attitudes that they have. So like every trip to the rink is a rewarding experience, no matter how challenging it is and things I have to overcome. I always leave happy with the experience I have.
Yeah, so like the three of us have we've met professional athletes, but like what's the feeling of being around pro athletes basically all the time?
Yeah. It's odd because now I don't think of it that way, but in one sense I don't, but at the same sense I do as well. When I first was hired by the Rivs, I'll admit I was nervous. I was, you know, 2 weeks before I had been at the Prudential Center watching the Riveters play on the ice. I was sitting 2 rows behind a bench, seeing athletes that I already held in high esteem and was impressed by their talent. And you know, I looked up to them as athletes, and then just a not lucky, but a fortunate series of events led me to be employed by the team, and there I was now working what I felt for them. So it was a little nerve wracking and intimidating for sure. Players I'd seen on TV and in person, I'm now supporting them, and I felt the pressure. But once I got in a groove and came up with a good system for like how to provide for them and communicate with them, that feeling has dissipated a lot. And now, and the players are so welcoming and appreciative. Like I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard players say, Mike, you're part of the team. Like you're one of us, you're on the team. So now I look to them more like their peers than I initially felt like I was working for them. And now I can even call some of those players as my friends, which is, you know, a positive influence in my life. But at the same time, I sometimes catch myself being like, whoa, like I'm in awe of some of my friends. And that's a pretty cool feeling to have because they're, you know, professionally and athletically just, you know, always pushing themselves to be the best versions of themselves. And it's cool to have people like that in my life.
So like what was that first moment where you were like, where like you said, you had that wow, like in all of your friends, like when was that first one that you realized like these are professional athletes that I'm now working with?
You know, I I don't know if I needed to have that moment, if that makes any sense. I've for years I've been in awe of female athletes. I've fortunately when I was younger, I actually lived with two D1 female hockey players at the University of Maine. I also was very close with some soccer players at the same school. And going back then, I was working for the men's program. I knew the female players pretty well. I knew that their level of compete and their commitment to the sport and their skill were on par in many levels with the men, their peers that were going on to play in the NHL. So since then, I've known that these women deserve like a stage, like visibility for their sport. So I was already in like all or like I knew that I was around these that wow factor was there and it's still there. And now I'm just happy to be a part of it because like I've known for years, like the friends I knew when I was younger, they got done college and they didn't have like even the thought of playing after school, even though they were some of the best athletes in the world at their game. And now it's just cool that that the NWHL players, the recent graduates, they can look forward to competing in a league on a national level and now international that we've expanded to Toronto. And it's just really cool. So that wow factor has always been there. And even after I became comfortable in the position, I'm impressed, but I'm just like, this is where they belong. This is the visibility they deserve. And, I'm just fortunate and blessed to be in a position I am.
So like being with all of them for so long, when did you say you joined the Riveters again?
In the fall of 2018.
2018. Since
Yeah.
then, what would you say is probably your favorite memory being with them, if you can pinpoint one, or like if you can't go through like two or three that like really stick out to you?
Yeah. You know how often I'm asked that question, and I think I answer differently every time, or it depends on the mood because there's events that stick out for different reasons. In terms of a Riveter specific event, I would say the Buffalo Believes Classic from this past year. For those of you that don't know, the NWHL played its first regular season game outside in Buffalo this year, and the Riveters were fortunate enough to be a part of that. So the hype, the excitement, the preparation that went into that was just awesome. Like I often caught myself like feeling like I was in one of the NHL's Road to the Winter Classic videos because in one sense it was a regular season game, but in the other sense, we were bringing extra media along. There was a documentary being made about the event, and all the little quirks of playing outside had to be addressed. And that was just, man, talk about a rush. So that was a moment I'll cherish. And it's funny, like I often miss a lot of the key events in a game because I'm working on the bench. But that's one of the only games I've gone back to watch multiple times because just the spectacle, the seesaw nature of the game. Like we had a big lead, then it became close, and then we finished strong and won the game. And just seeing the fan engagement with such at such a cool venue like that was just, I want to keep reliving it because it reminds me of the experience I had. There's that, and also the All-Star appearances that I was fortunate enough to participate in. The last 2 years, our All-Star games were played in Nashville 2 years ago and in Boston this past year. And that's like an opportunity I've had to like continue doing my job, but in a more relaxed atmosphere. And in doing so, I got, a few moments to get to know some of the players on the other team, for like form a professional rapport with them. And now, I'm more aware of like the personalities in the league. And while there's players on other teams that are, our opponents, I have profound respect for them now after getting to spend some time working with them. Yeah. And then aside from that, just some of the theme nights we've done, like the one that sticks out, we did one for the Police Benevolence Association this past year, like any games that we've played where we've donated to a good cause. And also another one where we did like a Sky Blue FC soccer theme night. And another venture I do. If it wasn't for COVID-19, I'd be working in the NWSL right now part-time. So that game brought a bunch of my worlds together in one night. And it just was a good rush. So like surrounded by all my favorite things. So, I mean, I could go on. If you ask me that tomorrow, I might answer, but yeah, those are definitely some of the highlights that come to mind.
Yeah, Ben's our big soccer guy.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, whenever soccer season starts back up, I'd love to expose you guys to some pro women's soccer in the area too. It's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you kind of touched a little bit on it with saying there were a few quirks at the outdoor game, but like what are some like everyday challenges that come with your position with the Riveters?
Sure. I think any equipment manager or even like athletic trainer would answer this in a similar way. Like once you get in a groove and you understand like the core responsibilities of the job, and like once I became familiar with my tools, I knew I could provide anything that the players needed with the resources I have available. But the way to go from being compliant to excelling as an equipment manager is really just getting to know the players. And in the beginning of the season in particular, you have to do that really quickly because you check off the easy boxes of what hollow does a player need, what kind of sticks do they use, what spare parts do you need for their equipment. That's the easy stuff. But the things that really make a difference, I feel like, in the athletes are when you do the special little touches for them that they notice. Like there's players that I've worked with for consecutive seasons now that I can look at their skates and I know what's in their best interest. I know that their skates need to be sharpened without them telling me, and they trust me to do that. Other players have little things like they prefer a specific kind of wax. So on game days, I keep that right in my left pocket because I know they ask for it multiple times a game. On some road trips this past season, there was a player that loved having ice cream as the evening before pregame meal. And if I was going out shopping, I'd pick up a pint of ice cream. And those little gestures, I could go down the whole list of our lineup from last year and tell you little things that I knew each player would appreciate or need or ask for. And once you form that like professional relationship with them and they share that stuff with you, I can provide a better service. So it's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge. It's like once you get past the nitty gritty, essential gear selection and needs, providing that like exceptional service to the players is I'd say the greatest challenge, but the most rewarding too, or the most gets me the most appreciation in return.
So now going more into the team side of the Riveters, how are you feeling about the draft results coming in? I kind of looked them up a little bit, and they did fare very well at the D1 level. So it looks like you have some good new talent coming to the team.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. In full disclosure, I have not watched game footage or really dug deeply into the scouting reports on these players, but I have heard and I've seen in person the vision that Coach Evo and our general manager, Kate Whitman-Annis, have for the organization, and seeing two strong defenders, some goalie support, that just fits in with the philosophy and the systems I've seen them building and growing and strengthening. So I'm looking forward to it. These players, new players excite me because it's new people to work with. Like I said, new people I need to learn about. But I also learn from every player because every hockey player has their unique needs. And so I'm looking forward just to meeting these players and finding out like what I can do to help them be the best player they can be on the ice.
And the final question I have before I turn you over to Jared is, are you excited about the addition of Coach Johnston, who was the former captain of the Riveters and the new director of hockey operations?
Yes. So actually, she's not the director of hockey ops. She's the assistant coach now. We have Gabrielle G was brought on board as our new director of hockey ops, and I understand how that might have been mixed up if you read a social update in a different order. But so we do have a new director of hockey operations, Gabrielle, who's phenomenal. I worked with her last year at a capacity that she was consulting. She was working as a consultant for the league with game day operations, and I worked closely with her during the All-Star game, and bringing her on board to assist with our hockey ops and game day ops, that's huge. She's going to bring a wealth of experience and great ideas to the fold. But going back to Ashley Johnson, who most fans in the league know as Stretch, I'm ecstatic to say the least. I'm really fired up for that because at the end of last season, I was a little disappointed, thinking that might be the last time I would work with her or even see her, because I had a hunch that she wasn't going to play again this year. She publicly said that. But when we were eliminated in Minnesota last year, in the playoffs, I stepped in the locker room and said a quick thank you to the players for the experience I had throughout the season. And I thanked them for their patience, their kindness, and the grace that they carried themselves with throughout the season, among other things. But I distinctly remember saying the word grace, and I was referring to Stretch when I said that word, because for somebody who had previously played in the league from season 1, had been the face of the Riveters for years, wore the C on her jersey, took 2 years off, but then came back and just stepped in as a role player in a season without coming in with an ego, without telling people this is how it should be done. She was a former Isabel Cup champion. I mean, to me, I was thinking about Chris Chelios when I saw that, because at the end of Chris Chelios' career, he just wanted to play hockey and he accepted less ice time, and Stretch did the same thing by being humble and leading by example and having a positive attitude. She made everyone around her better, and she speaks softly, but when she speaks, I notice everybody in the room turns and listens to her. So I'm excited to having that dichotomy on the bench with Coach Evo this year. I think that'll be an awesome tandem. And I'm just excited to have a chance to work with her some more, because having her, I had heard so many things about her before, because she had played before I joined the Rivs 2 years ago. So when she came back last year, I was excited, got to know her, but this is just, an unexpected surprise, to be honest, that I'll get to spend some more time working with her. She's going to have a positive impact immediately. And I know the players are already hyped up about it. I've spoken with a few, and they're really looking forward to spending more time with her.
That's awesome. Well, on the Jabcast, we like to have a series of questions that we hide from our guests.
Sure.
And we kind of throw at them these are hard-hitting questions developed by our very own Jared Emmel. So, Jared, why don't you take it away here, man?
Yeah. All right. So I've got 5 here.
Okay.
Like Alex said, they're very random. If you can't think of anything, don't stress it. They're pretty stupid, inconsequential questions. So.
All right. Well, listen, if you ask me a stupid question, I might hit you back with a stupid one. So just be ready for that.
That's what we hope for here.
Okay.
All right. So number 1. My sister actually asked me this today when we were watching Spider-Man, so this is probably the only good one we'll have. But if you had a secret identity, who would be the one person you'd tell?
I would tell. You know what? And I'm not saying this just because I'm on the podcast. I'm saying this because I know she would appreciate it and be able to keep a secret because she's such a good person. I'd tell Rebecca Morris on the Riveters.
All right.
Because I feel like she would just be ecstatic about hearing information like that, and she'd probably support my dual identity.
Yeah.
in a way that would make it fun.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, what is your favorite kind of body of water? So that's like ocean, lake, river, creek.
Yeah, ocean. Finally.
Ocean. You like the beach?
No, not even for the beach. I've always been a fan of sailing history. Like I'm kind of a naval warfare nerd.
Awesome.
So yeah, just actually right behind the computer that I'm talking to you on, I have some nautical maps hanging on the wall right in front of me here. So.
All right, this is a fitting question then. Cool. What is your favorite planet besides Earth?
Mars. Yes.
Easy.
I'm a Pluto guy myself, not gonna lie.
Oh, okay. That's debatable.
I want to learn more about Pluto before I pass judgment on
it. Who's a person from history you'd invite to a party?
Benjamin Franklin. Yeah.
Good answer.
I thought he was gonna say me.
And Wayman. And
Although,
then,
hey, having said that, I wouldn't mind getting to know you guys a little bit more in the future of your podcast. I'm looking forward to listening so I can learn more about you guys.
cool. Right. I like that. And then number 5, if you were a musical artist, which genre would you make?
I would say California reggae rock.
Oh, very
Nice.
specific. I like it. He was ready for that.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was.
Something
Cool.
like Dirty Heads, or because I've seen a lot of live music of every genre, but those guys seem to be having the most genuine, low-key fun when they're on tour.
Very cool.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
it's not, and they kind of stick to their guns as far as the music they play.
Mhm.
The crowds are usually like overwhelmingly like chill and mellow and just having
Yeah.
a good time. So I think that'd be a good circuit to run, being on tour in a jam band like that.
Yeah, cool.
Man.
Those are good
Jeez.
answers.
You answered so fast. People are going to think it was scripted.
Oh, actually, no, not at all. To be honest, a couple of the other questions were prompted, and I was all over the place with that. But
Yeah, I know. The
so,
ones...
Jared, I'm going to ask you a serious question now.
Yeah.
If you could put wings on any animal that doesn't traditionally have wings, and ergonomically and defying physics, it could fly, what
Yeah.
animal would you want to put the wings on?
Oh, I've thought about this, and the answer is rhino.
Rhino, okay.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. That was my question of the.
honestly,
Alec, what's your answer?
Oh, I would put it on an elephant just because that's my favorite animal, and they're huge, so it'd be funny to see them fly.
Fair enough. And Ben, how about you?
I'm saying an alligator.
Oh,
That'd be
that's
fierce. Yeah, that would like cull the population down a little bit in a way that we wouldn't want for sure.
Yeah, I really think that it's nearly impossible to think of a random question that Jared hasn't at one time thought about.
You would fit in at my full-time career job, because every day at work we have a hypothetical question of the day that anyone that comes through the office, we pose that question to them before they can even continue the conversation.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your answer for the animal one?
My answer was a blue whale, because that would just be
Oh,
wild.
yeah.
But at the same time, like our society would be drastically different if we had to build structures and buildings that could withstand an errant whale strike instead of a seagull.
Yeah, that's good.
But I'll tell you what, the best answer I got to that question, since we're talking about hypothetical questions, I asked one of the quality technicians at my full-time job, and as if he had spent his entire life preparing for someone to answer this question, he responded, pigs. So that all of a sudden a lot of people would owe a lot of other people things.
Yeah. That's clever. Yeah.
Yeah. But, oh, man, that was an awesome interview. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, Mike.
No problem, guys.
Thanks for having
I look forward to tuning in the future and hearing how this podcast evolves. And, I hope you guys all tune in to the Rivs this coming season.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Take care.